7-7 or 7.7. I don't know how to do it. 7.7. Okay. Interest. All right. Interest is the amount of money paid or earned for the use of money. And I'm going to explain that to you. Okay, so interest. Let's say I'm going to give 2 examples of the way interest is done. And we kind of talked about this last week, but just to, go into a little more detail. Interest. So you ready, Joseph? All right. What it is, for example, you want to buy a car. Okay? The car is $80,000. So you go to the bank because you don't have $80,000 laying around. So you go to the bank and you say, I want to buy this $80,000 car. Can you loan me the money? And the bank's going to see what kind of job you have and stuff like that if you make enough money to eventually pay it back. And you don't have to pay it back like the next month, but over the next several years, you pay a little bit each month back, okay? It'd be like if you borrowed $100 from your parents and they say, okay, but you got to pay me back. They're not going to say, okay, next week you better pay me $100. They could say, well, pay me, $20 a month, and then until you pay it back. You see where I'm going with this? So you go to the bank, I want to buy an $80,000 car. They say, okay, you have a good job and we'll let you do that, but it's going to cost you. And what they mean is they're going to loan you the money, but they're going to charge you a fee to borrow that money. That fee is interest. Okay? So they're going to say, we'll loan you the car, the money for the car, we'll loan you $80,000, but it's going to cost you $5,000 to borrow the money from the bank. You still have to pay back the $80,000 and the $5,000. So if the car's $80,000, you borrowed $80,000 from the bank, plus that interest, how much do you have to pay back now? If you borrowed $80,000, but they're charging you the $5,000 interest, what do you have to pay back now? $80,000 plus the $5,000 fee. So you have to, how much do you have to pay for the car? How much do you have to pay back to the bank? Plus what? That's right. So how much total? Wait, 80,000, right? That's how much the car is. You borrowed that from the bank. Huh? Okay, so you borrowed $80,000 from the bank to buy that car. They're going to charge you interest to be able to borrow it, an extra $5,000. So how much total do you end up having to pay the bank back? There you go. To pay the bank back, you're going to have to pay back $85,000. So interest is that money that they charge you to borrow, okay? We'll let you borrow the $80,000 from the bank, to buy your car, but it's going to cost you an extra $5,000. So you're going to end up having to total pay back this much money. So even though the car was $80,000, you're going to have to pay back $85,000. Okay? That is your interest, that bonus money, that fee that you have to pay the bank back. Okay? Now, let's say this is borrowed. Okay? Let's say you have a savings account. Bank, again. Let's say, Joseph, for your birthday, okay, Joseph got $5,000 for his birthday. Okay? And you put it into a savings account. You put it into savings. Well, the bank says, hey, if you put your money in a savings account at our bank, we're going to give you bonus money to keep it there. Let's say they said, all right, for putting $5,000 in our bank for savings, we're going to add $100. That's your interest. If it's where you have a savings account. So how much money do you now have in the bank? Now, actually, this is your money, okay? You put it into a savings account. Savings account is where you put it in the bank to just keep there, to hold on for, they hold on to it for you. Okay, if you keep it in the bank for like a year or 2 years, the bank actually pays you interest. So then you will have earned this total money. So interest can work in two different ways. In one way, if you borrow money from the bank is going to charge you $5,000. So you have to pay the bank back that money that you borrowed plus the interest. So you end up having to pay $85,000 for the car, really, because you have to pay that back. But if you put money into a savings account, interest can also help you out. The bank will say, well, if it's a savings account, because see here, you're not borrowing money, you're just putting it in the bank to hold on to. The bank will pay you like $100 just for leaving your money in the bank for like a year or two. And so you end up making an extra $100 for doing nothing. And there's a lot of people that do that. There's a lot of really good savings accounts. My mom, she put a bunch of money into some different accounts, and the interest that she makes or earns off that money, she can pay bills with. And so here she is retired and everything, and she just uses the interest, and she doesn't have to pay it back. She gets to keep it. That's like extra money that you don't have to pay back that you earn. And so she'll pay bills with that. Okay, so let's get started. The formula for figuring out interest, and I'm going to do colon here. So interest equals what I call PERT. P times R times T. So interest equals P times R times T. So I is for interest. And remember, interest can be used in two different ways. Either you're borrowing it and it's like a fee that the bank makes you pay, so you end up having to pay more than what you borrowed. Or if you put your money into a savings account, interest is something that the bank gives you instead of you giving it to the bank. So, and then you get to keep all that. I is interest. The P is your principal. which is the amount of money borrowed or put into bank. So principal is the amount of money that you either borrowed or you put into the bank. For example, look up here. $80,000 that you borrowed to buy that car, that's your principal. $5,000 that you got for a birthday that you put into the savings account in the bank, that's also your principal. Okay? So the $5,000 and the $80,000 is your principal. You understand that? Okay, if you have questions, ask. R is your rate, and that is your annual rate of interest, and it's done in a percent. So, and we've been doing that a lot. Every time they say discount rate or markup rate, it's always in the form of a percent. And then last but not least, T. T is the time in years, not months. If it's done in months, you got to change it to years. So it's time in years. For example, if you put your money, your principal, into the bank, you earn interest over maybe 1 year or 2 years or 5 years. Same with up here. If you borrowed $80,000, which is your principal, you have to pay it all back within, let's say, 10 years or 15 years or something like that, okay? Okay. To find the total amount repaid after a certain period of time, you will add the interest to the principal. So to find the total amount either repaid or earned after a certain period of time, you will add the interest to the principal. For example, up here, we added the interest to the principal, and that's the total amount you pay back. Here, we added the interest to the principal, and that gives you your total. Both of these are your total that you earn. So up here, because you borrowed, it's your total amount that you pay back. Here, it's your total amount that you earn. So the formula really is A equals principal plus interest. That's what we just did up there. A is the amount total. That's nothing. So it could be either you get paid or you pay them. Okay? But that, you don't even have to memorize that formula because it's right here. You just got to remember that. Any questions? Okay. now that you learned that, I gotta teach you something different. It's called compound interest. You know what? I think since we got the girls gone, absent, I think I'm going to be nice and we might just skip this part. You don't object to that, do you? No. Okay, so we're going to skip compound interest and just stick with the regular that we've been doing. In fact, let me look real quick. Yeah, I'm going to make this easy on you. And you're like, yes, thank you, Mrs. Rogers. Let me hear you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So ladies at home, we're not gonna look at this right now because it's gonna be hard to teach y'all being gone and everything. So we're gonna stick with the simple interest. Okay, so if you master that, you're gonna be just fine. If things slow down later on, I can come back and we can go over this. But really and truly, I think what you're learning with that is enough. That's all I expect. Okay, so go ahead, Joseph. Let's open up the book. And let's just get started. Page 300. Let's master the first thing before I teach you more. All right, page 300. You there? Okay. So we're going to start with number 1. It says, find the amount of interest due on the following simple interest loans. Now remember, loans. Loans is where you're borrowing money from the bank. Okay, that's what a loan is. So they're asking for, it says find the amount of interest. So we don't know what the interest is. That's what we have to find. So Joseph, what is the principal? That's right, 4,200 for number 1. The rate, what is the rate?
The rate is 15%. 12%.
Good, 12%. What do we do to percent?
Change it into decimal.
That's right. So we're going to move the decimal over 2 places to the left. So we turn that to 0.12. And then the time, what is the time?
2 years.
Very good. And yes, we always want to make sure it's in years. If it's months, we have to change it to years. Okay, the formula is interest equals principal times rate times time. So PERT, always say PERT. We don't know the interest, that's what we're looking for. Principal is 4,200. Rate is 0.12. And time is 2 years. Joseph, you are allowed to use a calculator. But right now, I'm going to do it for you. Save on time. And then I'll let you go get your calculator, okay? So, if you calculated this correctly, what I always tell my students to do is multiply the 4,200 and then the 2 together, and then multiply it by 0.12. But either way, I'm going to let you use calculators. The answer is $1,008. That is your answer. $1,008. That's your interest. But Joseph, and this is your answer, guys, this is your answer. But Joseph, just for fun, how much would you have to pay back to this bank? So you borrow $4,200 and you're going to pay them back over a 2-year period. So how much total would you have to pay back the bank? Do you remember how to do that? Do you remember?
You have to add it.
There you go. You have to add it. So you take your principal and add that interest. And that is what you pay the bank back. Okay. You got that? Okay, so let's recap. You borrowed $4,200 from the bank to buy something. Now now think about this, Joseph. You borrowed this to buy something, okay? The bank is charging you an extra $1,000, $1,008 to borrow money. So instead of paying the bank back just the $4,200, you're having to pay back $5,208. That is a lot of money that the bank is charging you just to borrow, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Does that even sound fair? No, exactly. Exactly. So the more this rate is, the higher this rate, the more you're going to have to pay the bank back. And that's ridiculous. That's an extra $1,000 you could be spending on something else. So it's really difficult to, when you're having to borrow stuff. Yes. Oh, let me pause. Hold on, guys. Okay. Let's do another. Let's look at number 3. Okay, again, same thing. We are looking for interest. So we don't have the interest. What's the principal? That's right. What is the rate? That's right. We changed that to 0.15. And then time is?
3 years.
That's right. 3 years. So this time you're borrowing $4,000. And look, see, this rate is higher than the last one. So that means this bank's going to charge you even more money. But you don't have to pay it back for 3 years. You're at, so that's not too bad, but still 3 years to pay this back. So again, it's interest equals PERT. So principal is 4,000 times 0.15 times 3. We just multiply it all together. And the interest that you have to pay extra for borrowing money is $1,800. That is your answer. That's the interest. Now, Joseph, you tell me, how much are you going to have to pay the bank in the end?
So it's going to be 4,000
Uh-huh.
plus 1,000.
And so you're going to end up having to pay 5,800 back to the bank. Total payback. That's a lot of money the bank is charging you just to borrow money. Any questions? No? All right. Look at number 2 real quick. I'm not going to do it for you. But do you see that the time is 6 months for number 2? Okay, you have to have it in years. Has to be in years. So what would that be in years? 6 months. That's right. It'd be half a year. So instead of doing 6 months, it would be 0.5 years. There you go. Does that make sense? So anytime you have months, you have to change it to years. And 6 months is half a year, so it would be 0.5. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Okay, let's look at number 7. Okay. So this time, the directions say find the interest and the amount to pay back on the following simple interest loans. We already did that. We found interest, and then we found the amount you have to pay back. But on that section, they just want interest. This section, they're going to want both. 2 answers. There you go. So let's look at number 7, because it's kind of weird. Okay, so number 7, they're asking, let's start with trying to find the interest. We don't know what the interest is. What is the principal? Okay, very good. The rate is
12% or 0.12.
okay, and the time, what is it? It says 9 months, right? So we got to change that to years. Do you know how to do that? Let me tell you. Okay, so to do that, we do 9 months over 12 years. We're going to convert. That's your months. That is, there's 12 months equal 1 year. So we have 9 over 12, because 12 months, I should have an S there, equals 1 year. So then you divide 9 by 12. And to save on time, I'm just going to tell you 12 goes in here that many times, 0.75. So that's how you would convert the months into years. So then this 9 months really becomes 0.75 years. Do you understand that? Let's go back to PERT. So interest equals 750 times 0.12 times 0.75. And to save on time, I'm going to tell you it is $67.50. That's your first, whoops, I didn't box it. That's your first answer. That's interest. But they also want to know how much you're going to pay back. So look at that. You borrow $750, but you got to also pay back $67.50. So how would you, solve that again?
You would add 750.
That's right, to the $67.50, and we need to line up decimals. So you end up paying back $817.50. So you better have two answers there. Any questions? Any questions? Hold on, let me pause.
I've been having.
Right? I'm going to make it nice. 300 to 301, numbers 2 through, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's just do that. 2 through 14 even. 7 problems. That is due Tuesday. No, today is Tuesday. Due Wednesday. How about that?
Monday.
I know.